Get ready to scream. Thrill seekers, it's Sunday Fun Day, and that means another dose of heart-stopping horror is coming your way. New to our horror stories? Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to join the ranks of the fearless few who dare to face the darkness every week. Tonight, we're unleashing 5 fearful fables that will leave you sleeping with the lights on, from haunted trains to ghostly encounters. These terrifying tales will push you to the edge of sanity. So, grab a blanket, dim the lights, and prepare to face your deepest fears with us. Let's dive into the abyss of horror together. Story 1, Love Beyond the Grave, a haunting experience. I'm bringing another new real supernatural experience in front of you. If your girlfriend lovingly offers you sweets, would you refuse her? Probably not. But after hearing this story, you might reconsider. Yes, today's incident is about a couple, Maddie and Anusa, who lived together in South Ex, Delhi, in a live-in relationship. Both worked at the same company and shared the same flat. What happened to them is what you'll find out in this story. But before we dive deeper, if you have your own real supernatural experiences, feel free to share them with me on the provided ID. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, because your subscription is our motivation. Now, coming back to Maddie and Anusa's story, Maddie was originally from Haryana but held a team lead position in a marketing company in Delhi. Anusa had recently joined the same company in the HR department. Maddie was about 6 feet tall, with a solid build typical of a Jat boy. He was very smart looking. As for Anusa, she was about 5 feet 7 inches or 5 feet 8 inches, with an oval face, big eyes, a fair complexion, and a perfectly balanced physique. Maddie, who had a strong personality, was instantly smitten by Anusa. He fell for her at first sight and immediately started thinking of ways to get closer to her. And as they say, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. Soon, he managed to become close to Anusa, and their conversations turned into friendship, which quickly blossomed into a relationship. Since both worked at the same company, they commuted together, hung out together, and eventually decided to move in together. Around 2016 to 17, they searched for 3 different flats. However, when the landlords found out they weren't married, they were refused accommodation as it wasn't allowed in the society. Finally, they found a flat in South Ex, which they liked. It was a 2-bedroom flat, and the landlord had no issues with them staying together. The flat was newly painted, as the previous tenants had caused a lot of damage to the walls. The landlord had just completed repainting it 5 or 7 days earlier. Maddie and Anusa paid the advance and moved into the flat the next day. Life was going smoothly. They went to the office together, hit the gym together, and enjoyed their time together. However, after moving into the flat, they both noticed something odd. Every morning, when they woke up, they would find a thin layer of ash scattered around their room, as if someone had smoked a cigarette or burned incense sticks during the night. They thought maybe it was coming through the gap under the door or through an open window. But if that were the case, there would be ash everywhere. However, the ash would only be scattered in a few specific places. Anusa would sweep it up and dispose of it in the dustbin before they left for work, not paying much attention to it. But how long can you ignore something strange happening in your own home? One morning, as Anusa was cleaning up the ash again, curiosity got the better of her. She took a closer look at it and realized it had no smell, no cigarette odor or incense fragrance. Nothing. It was completely neutral. She didn't understand where it was coming from, but she brushed it off and continued with her day as usual. One night, Anusa suddenly woke up from her sleep. She heard a voice in her ear. She looked around, but the sound was very clear, as if someone had called her name. Anusa. She looked everywhere, but Maddie was asleep. She woke him up and asked, "Did you hear any voice?" He replied, "What kind of voice?" She said, "Someone called my name." Maddie dismissed it and told her to go back to sleep, saying, "It's just your imagination. Maybe you're not feeling well." But the voice had been very clear. It wasn't a dream or something from her imagination. She thought it could have been her mind playing tricks on her. And with that, she went back to sleep. The next morning, as usual, there was ash scattered around the room again. She cleaned it up, threw it in the dustbin, and went about her day. But the voice from the night still lingered in her mind. It had been so real, like someone had whispered right into her ear. She thought maybe it was just her mind trying to convince herself of that. Once again, there was some ash scattered in the room. As she swept it into the dustbin, she noticed that the ash had formed a line, creating some sort of pattern. She stared at it for a while, not understanding what it meant. She threw it out and continued her routine, heading to work. At the office, she wasn't feeling well. Her head felt heavy, maybe from the lack of sleep the night before. She told Maddie, "I'm not feeling well. I think I'll take a half day off and go back to the flat to rest." Maddie agreed and said it was a good idea. After taking the half day, she reached the flat, took some medicine for her headache, and lay down to sleep. This was the first time Anusa had been alone in the flat since they moved in, and perhaps that was her biggest mistake. Anusa fell into a deep sleep, but she was jolted awake by the sound of someone screaming. When she opened her eyes, she was terrified by what she saw. Standing before her was a woman, completely burnt, with her charred body and glaring white eyes staring at her. Anusa's body froze. She couldn't scream or move. The woman pointed at her and said, "You will burn too," and then disappeared. Shocked and horrified, Anusa looked around, but the woman was gone. All that was left was ash scattered where the woman had stood. Anusa, realizing what had happened, quickly grabbed her phone and rushed out of the flat. She called Maddie and told him to come home immediately, without giving him any details. She waited outside until Maddie arrived. When he did, she told him about the burnt woman she had seen in the flat and the ash that was left behind. They both went inside to check, but when they looked, there was no ash. Maddie, trying to calm her down, said, "You're imagining things. Anusa, there are no ghosts. You're probably just not feeling well. Let's go see a doctor." Anusa insisted that she had seen the woman clearly, standing right there, and that the ash had appeared in the exact same spot. Maddie replied, "You've been feeling off for the past few days. First, you heard a voice calling your name, and now you're seeing a woman. You're just too stressed out. It's probably because of the ash. It's messing with your head." At this, Anusa started getting angry, feeling like Maddie wasn't taking her seriously. Realizing this, Maddie softened his tone and said, "All right, maybe something strange did happen. Why don't you rest for a bit? I'll stay here with you. Sometimes when we're not feeling well, our mind can play tricks on us." They were both educated and logical, so Anusa also thought it could be her mind creating illusions due to her lack of sleep. She rested for 2 hours while Maddie stayed at the flat. But this wasn't a one-time occurrence. From that day onwards, every night Anusa would hear a voice in her ears, and every time, she would see the burnt woman in different places. But Maddie never heard the voice or saw the woman. The only thing they would find in the morning was the ash scattered around the room. Every night, the same voice whispered in Anusa's ears, "You will burn too." But who was this voice? Many times, Anusa would wonder, trying to make sense of it. The story revolves around Maddie and a strange situation involving his girlfriend, who increasingly starts fearing that he might burn her alive. It begins when the girl one day directly asks Maddie if he plans to kill her by burning her. Confused, Maddie dismisses her fear, assuring her that he has no such intentions. However, she insists that she's been hearing a voice every night, telling her that she would be burned. Maddie starts thinking she might be going crazy. Despite this, over time, he notices her health deteriorating and her beauty fading as well. When she shares her fears with her mother, her mom advises her to return home immediately. She does so, and after discussing the matter with an expert, they learn that a woman's spirit is attached to her, one that won't let her go easily. The expert suggests a remedy involving a special offering, a sweet that when fed to someone would make the spirit attached to them instead. Maddie's life continues without the girl for a while, but he begins seeing ashes floating around his room. He sets up a camera to confirm if something paranormal is happening. The next morning, when he checks the footage, he sees layers of ash floating in the room, confirming his suspicions. Later, he sees a woman's face in the bathroom mirror but doesn't panic and confronts the situation calmly. Maddie discusses this with his landlord, who reveals the dark history of the flat. A husband and wife used to live there, but the wife had an affair. When the husband found out, he killed her by burning her alive. Since then, the flat had remained unsold for years, and the spirit of the wife seemed to haunt it. This explains the paranormal occurrences in Maddie's flat. Meanwhile, the girl returns and insists on feeding Maddie a sweet that she claims is a holy offering from a temple. Maddie, suspicious of her motives, secretly feeds the sweet to a stray dog instead. To his horror, the dog dies a few hours later. Angry and feeling betrayed, Maddie confronts her, accusing her of trying to kill him. In a fit of rage, he slaps her, locks her in a room, and leaves to spend the night at a friend's house. The next morning, when Maddie returns, he finds the girl's burnt body lying on the floor. He is devastated, realizing that he should have trusted her and spoken to her. The police and society would surely blame him for her death since only the two of them lived in the flat. The guilt and fear overwhelm him, and a few hours later, Maddie takes his own life. The tragic end of this couple's story is rooted in misunderstandings. What do you think? Was there a real paranormal presence? Or was this simply a case of miscommunication between the two? Could the spirit have been responsible for the girl's death? Story 2: The Curse of Death, a real-life horror story. Today's story involves a situation where, after death, an exit was opened between two worlds, connecting them in an unusual way. The incident took place with Sham Das and Shantanu Das's family. Shantanu has a family consisting of his parents, a younger sister, and a grandmother. On January 23, 2018, Shantanu's grandmother passed away. Her death was natural at the age of 60. Before diving into the story, it's important to understand a few details about their location. The family lived in a building with 2 rooms on each floor, connected by a spiral staircase that led down to the general house. The building was located next to a large lake, which was used for performing ancestral rites, Pindan. Whenever someone passed away in their area, this lake was a significant part of their surroundings. The family followed the traditional rituals, and after the grandmother's death, they went to Hardwar for the Pindan ceremonies. It took them almost 2 days to go there and return. They returned on January 28, 2018, in the evening right before Navratri. The family consisted of Shantanu, his parents, his sister, and his aunt. After performing their rituals, everyone went to bed. On January 26th, Shantanu's sister woke up feeling very uneasy, her face pale and worried. She hurriedly told her family that she was going to the temple, but everyone thought it was strange. She left in a hurry, and no one questioned her further. The next day, the rituals continued, but things started to intensify after the ceremony. Strange incidents began happening, and the intensity of these occurrences increased over time. One evening, while Shantanu was studying in his room, he turned off the lights and headed to the stage area. As soon as he reached the stage, he noticed a shadowy figure of a woman wearing a red sari. This figure appeared faintly in the dark but seemed to be staring at him. For just a couple of seconds, Shantanu felt that the figure was scrutinizing him, but then it vanished. Shantanu was sure that this was not his grandmother. The presence was clear, but he didn't understand what it was. He told his family about it, but they dismissed it as his imagination. However, the disturbances continued, and more incidents occurred. Shantanu's grandmother's saris were being distributed among her friends, and the way they were arranged in the cupboard seemed to show care and love for those items. Some people had a strong emotional connection to these things, which added to the peculiar happenings. This is a story of how the boundaries between the living and the dead can sometimes blur, leading to unsettling experiences. What do you think? Were these occurrences truly paranormal, or were they the result of misunderstandings and emotional ties? Share your thoughts in the comments below. They had kept all their saris very carefully. The problem arose because their grandmother had passed away, and there was uncertainty about who would wear the saris. So, they decided to distribute the saris among poor women in the community. However, after this, strange noises began coming from the grandmother's room. The family noticed that the door to her room was opening and closing on its own repeatedly. There were no drafts or other explanations for the door's erratic behavior, and it was making noises like knocking. The door was opening and closing on its own for about 3 minutes. The family was puzzled and thought it might be someone playing a prank, but it was happening continuously. Shantanu's sister reported seeing a figure of a woman in a red sari staring at her. It was very clear that this was not their grandmother. The figure was only visible for a few seconds but was staring intently. Shantanu told his family about it, but they dismissed it as his imagination. The disturbances continued, and the family noticed more unexplained events. Shantanu's grandmother's saris were distributed, and the way they were arranged in the cupboard showed care and affection. Some people had strong emotional ties to these items. After a few days, they consulted a priest who explained that the disturbances were due to an opening that had formed between the worlds because of the grandmother's death. The priest suggested that the planet's positions might have caused a gate to open, allowing spirits to enter and leave the house. This was causing the strange occurrences and heightened disturbances. The priest advised them to be cautious and keep their house clean, but the disturbances continued. The family started to experience more intense occurrences, like lights and fans turning on and off by themselves, and strange noises at night. They felt like there were many spirits present in their home. One day, they heard noises and saw things moving around the house, but no one was visible doing it. The house was filled with random sightings of figures and noises. These events continued to escalate, and the family felt increasingly uneasy. Overall, the disturbances were believed to be caused by the spiritual energy connected to the grandmother's death and the emotional ties to the items she left behind. Initially, these disturbances occurred between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m., but later they started happening even at 8 or 9 p.m. The situation was becoming increasingly unbearable for the family. So, they called a tantric, a practitioner of Tantra. The tantric confirmed what the priest had said, stating that the remedy for these disturbances could only be done 4 months after the death. The priest's advice was accurate, and the tantric echoed the same, saying that the issue could not be resolved before 2 months. The tantric recommended sprinkling Ganga water in the house daily and reciting certain mantras to help reduce the disturbances. This would help lessen the intensity of the disturbances over time. However, if the disturbances were to persist, it would be crucial to wait and see how the situation unfolds. On the last day of the 4th month, as the remedies were to begin, the family was all sleeping in one room around 11:30 p.m. Suddenly, they began hearing loud knocking noises at the door, and it sounded as if someone was trying to break in. The knocking continued, and the family was terrified, as they recognized it as their grandmother's voice. It was clear that something was wrong, and they were too afraid to open the door. The next morning, everything was quiet. The family performed a large puja ritual with many mantras chanted, sealing the house to prevent any further disturbances. After this puja, there were no more disturbances, and the family continued to live in the house without experiencing any further issues. This incident was a significant event for Shantanu and his family, and it strongly resonated with me. It's an example of how such paranormal Events can happen and impact people's lives. I hope you found this incident interesting and that it provided some insights. It shows how sometimes unusual events have explanations rooted in the natural or spiritual realms. Story 3: Dark Forces at Work. A shocking Bhopal black magic story. I'm here with another real supernatural experience. Neighbors can be a great help in times of need if they're good, but if they're bad, they can bring trouble quickly. They say finding a good neighbor is as valuable as finding a good spouse. However, sometimes people find neighbors who seem sweet and helpful on the outside but are actually harmful on the inside. This is what happened in today's story. Before diving into the story, let me ask you something. Is it possible for a sick person to recover without any medicine or doctors? No, right? But something similar happened in today's incident, which is from Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. Let me first make a request to everyone. I hope you enjoy listening to these stories. However, many of you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Please do share, like, and subscribe because your likes and shares help us a lot. If you're learning something, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your suggestions are very important, so if you have any other types of stories or suggestions, please comment in the section below. Your suggestions matter a lot to me. The story dates back to 2012 to 2013. Kuldeep Singh's family, which included 5 members, his parents, grandfather, and aunt, lived next to the family of Mangal Tiwari. Mangal Tiwari's wife was Suman Tiwari, and Suman Tiwari's sister, Kusum Tiwari, was married to Mangal Tiwari's brother. So both sisters were married to the 2 brothers, and they were neighbors to Kuldeep Singh. Their houses had a common wall, meaning they were directly connected. Kuldeep Singh's family didn't have a strong or close relationship with their neighbors, but they did exchange greetings and had normal interactions. Kuldeep's grandfather had a good rapport with the Tiwari family. Everything was going normally until one day when Kuldeep's grandfather noticed that Mangal Tiwari's health was declining. He told his son, Ranjit Singh, that Mangal Tiwari might not have much time left because his health was continuously deteriorating. Ranjit Singh questioned why his father felt this way, and his father explained that Mangal Tiwari's condition was worsening and he might pass away soon. Although Ranjit Singh didn't believe there was much to do, Kuldeep's mother overheard and decided to discard the prasadam, sacred food, that had been brought from the neighbor's house. She thought it was better to throw it away rather than use it in their worship. One morning, Kuldeep's mother found that the prasadam had been eaten by Kuldeep's father, despite his usual habit of never consuming prasadam. He claimed he felt like eating it and enjoyed it, though he never normally ate such things. His wife was concerned but let it go. Days passed normally until things took a dark turn. Kuldeep's father began experiencing severe health issues, including vomiting and digestive problems. Despite numerous tests, doctors could not find any conclusive issues. Kuldeep's father lost weight rapidly and was hospitalized frequently. He also developed high blood sugar levels and was eventually diagnosed with diabetes. Although the medical treatment and lifestyle changes helped control his diabetes, his condition didn't improve significantly. He started experiencing worsening health issues, including gastrointestinal problems that led to frequent hospital visits. This cycle continued with brief periods of recovery followed by relapses. The family was at a loss, and Kuldeep's grandfather's harsh words added to their distress. He criticized the spending on Kuldeep's father's treatment, which further demoralized everyone. Meanwhile, Mangal Tiwari, who had been unwell, started recovering after engaging in spiritual practices, including chanting mantras. This case illustrates how some supernatural events can be linked to real-life issues, and sometimes even seemingly unrelated events or rituals might have an impact. I hope you found this story intriguing and insightful. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and like the video, and stay tuned for our next one. At the rate at which his condition was improving, it seemed unbelievable that a dying person was slowly recovering. But perhaps there was another reason behind this. One day, when his father was admitted to the hospital, There was a lemon tree in their courtyard. Some branches of this lemon tree almost touched the neighbor's roof. His aunt, who was doing some work at home, noticed a bag hanging from the lemon tree. It was a green bag, and it contained something. When his aunt saw it, she didn't know what it was, but she called everyone in the neighborhood and showed them the bag, asking them to see what was in it. They said that there was nothing in the bag. It contained some flowers that they couldn't throw away after worshiping Lord Shiva, so they had hung it on the tree. However, the aunt insisted, "You should hang it on one of your own trees. Why hang it on our tree?" She had been observing that the bag had been hanging there for a long time, so she insisted they remove it. They quickly took down the bag and removed it. The day after the bag was removed, his father, who had been admitted just a few days earlier and typically stayed in the hospital for 15 days, was discharged the very next day. When his mother learned about this from the aunt, she realized that what was happening might not be a medical condition at all. It could be that the neighbors were doing something. She remembered a day when her grandfather had mentioned that they had performed a puja ritual at their home, and her father had consumed the prasad, sacred offering, from that puja. Connecting the dots, she began to see that everything had started happening after that day. She began to explore other ways to address the issue, not just medical but also seeking help from people who might be able to remove black magic. While her father was in the hospital, she was always with him. But when he was home, she searched everywhere to find a genuine healer who could remove black magic. Finding such genuine people was very difficult. She found some people who claimed they could help, but the problem was that the insider was her grandfather. Whenever they went to consult these people, her grandfather would inform them, and they would end up going to a different place. It was as if her grandfather was under their control, like a surveillance camera transmitting every activity in the house. Despite visiting several places, there was no improvement. His condition kept deteriorating, he was losing weight rapidly, and his ribs and hip bone were becoming visible. He wouldn't eat, couldn't participate in any activities, and even when forced to eat, he would vomit. He couldn't sleep despite taking sleeping pills. His eyes would remain open, staring as if seeing something. In just 2 to 2.5 months, a previously healthy person's condition had deteriorated so severely. His mental health also began to suffer. He started talking to himself and cursing himself with harsh words. When his family saw this, they became very worried. Even after visiting Balaji's temple several times, there was no improvement in his condition. During Ganesh Chaturthi, when his mother was performing the puja and had placed Ganesha's idol on an elevated spot, his father, who wasn't supposed to be able to move, suddenly got up, picked up his slippers from under the bed, and hit the idol with them so accurately that the idol fell and broke into pieces. His mother noticed a strange smile on his father's face, as if he had done what he wanted to do, and then he sat back on his bed. His mother saw a different expression on his face, as if someone else was present. After that incident, his mother became even more active, trying to find someone who could help. A wife never abandons her husband, no matter what. She stayed awake all night with her husband, comforting him and telling him to be patient, promising that she would find a solution. Things didn't stop there. Now, instead of just cursing himself, he started cursing his wife as well, suggesting that she should get poison and feed it to their children. Then they would both commit suicide. This was a reference to the children's names, Kuldeep and his aunt's children. His mother was devastated but did not lose hope. The next day, she managed to find a priest who agreed to help, but when she arrived for the appointment, she forgot and missed the meeting. The priest said he had never called her and implied that the opportunity to be helped was lost. One night, their house had a half-constructed terrace with an open space where the stairs led to the first floor. They usually locked the gate to prevent thieves. That night, her grandfather accidentally forgot to lock the gate. Her mother was sleeping deeply for the first time, not checking on her husband. She woke up around 5 a.m. and noticed that her husband was not on the bed. She did not think much of it, as she had already suspected he might have left. Where would they meet? She ran straight up to the roof, and as soon as she reached the roof by climbing the stairs, the ground seemed to shift beneath her feet. Her husband was hanging from a noose, and he had already died. She began to scream and cry loudly. Hearing her cries, her grandfather, Kuldeep, and his aunt all rushed up and saw the chaos inside the house. There was a commotion and neighbors gathered. Someone called the police, and while waiting for the police to arrive, they lowered her father's body and placed it downstairs. When they checked, they found a suicide note in his father's pocket which read, "I am doing this of my own free will. No one else is responsible for it. I forgive my father for whatever he did. Please do not say anything bad about him and always honor him." But that wasn't all. Kuldeep noticed that where his father had committed suicide, directly underneath the same spot, there was a small black cross. At that time, no one was thinking clearly. The police had arrived, the whole neighborhood had gathered, and the last rites were performed. Kuldeep himself performed the final rites. The family was devastated. The next night, while Kuldeep was either sitting or sleeping, he suddenly had a dream. In this dream, his father was sitting at the top of the stairs, crying and saying, "Son, forgive me. What I did was very wrong. I couldn't do anything good for you. Forgive me." After saying this, he vanished. After that day, Kuldeep never had that dream again. Perhaps his father had come to seek forgiveness. As time passed, everything gradually returned to normal. Kuldeep often went up to the roof and noticed that the cross mark was still there. When he started searching the surroundings, he found a dried half-cut lemon with vermilion inside it, lying in the corner of the room. It was clear that someone had thrown this lemon into their house, and the only possible place from where it could have been thrown was the neighbor's house, Babu Tiwari's. Babu Tiwari, who had been in a dying condition some time ago, was now seen moving around in the neighborhood, doing well. He would chant mantras day and night, and the whole neighborhood believed his health had improved due to his worship of God. 13 days after Kuldeep's father's death, the family was quietly leaving their house around 3 a.m. Kuldeep, who couldn't sleep at night, noticed some movement and saw everyone quietly getting into a car and leaving. He prayed but was sure that those people were responsible for what happened and that perhaps the black magic they had employed had completed its work. Whether they were going to meet someone or planning something new, despite their noise, they couldn't do anything. Even if they reported it to the police, they had no evidence. The lemon could not be considered evidence. Helpless, they couldn't do anything to those people. However, even after his father's death, Kuldeep's grandfather continued to visit the neighbor's house as if nothing had happened, treating them as if they were still family. He would spend hours there, eating and drinking with them, and no one did anything about it. But karma hits back. In the 5 years following this incident, Mangla Tiwari's entire family was ruined. During the COVID lockdown, Mangla Tiwari's health deteriorated severely, and there was much prayer and ritual in their home. This time, they were very prepared and fearful that Mangla Tiwari might be targeted, just like his father had been. They checked everything daily, ensuring that no offering was left inside the house, and examined the roof regularly. But this time, despite all the prayers and preparations, nothing worked, and his father's death occurred. When they took his body to the village for the last rites, Mangla Tiwari had an accident, resulting in blood clots in his legs. The accident was severe, and doctors said he wouldn't survive. On January 4th, 2024, Mangla Tiwari also passed away at exactly 3 a.m. Kuldeep believes this was the same time his father had ended his life. Not only that, but shortly after, Mangla Tiwari's mother also died, followed by his brother. His wife and sister became widows, and when his father died, his 2 daughters were very young, one in 7th grade and the other in 10th grade. Now, those daughters are also orphaned around the same age. Perhaps now, it seems to them that even if someone else didn't deliver justice, the universe did. The universe has given its verdict, punishing the guilty. But his family, especially his mother, still regrets not having discarded the offering before the prayer instead of after. Maybe if they had done so, her husband would still be alive, and their family would be happy. But who can avoid destiny? In a world where there are bad people, there are also good people. The owner of the company where his father worked still gives the same salary to his family every month, even after his death. This story shows two different types of characters. One family destroyed another to save themselves, while another took care of their employee's family after his death, understanding their need. This is the difference in mindset. As ancient texts say, "As you sow, so shall you reap." Hurting others may give you instant gains, but you won't be able to sustain it. So, before doing harm to anyone, you should think twice, because what you do will eventually come back to you. This is the wheel of time, it always turns. You should keep this in mind. Unknowingly, if something happens, it's not your fault. But knowingly doing harm to someone means karma is a bitch, and it will come back. Story 4. The Woman in White. A spine-tingling street story. This story is from Shimla, and recently, I visited Shimla with my family and booked a guest house there. We were in Shimla in 2008. There's a place called Channel CL, a basic location, a cricket ground known for its high altitude and scenic beauty. We had booked rooms there. At night, while we were all sleeping, my wife felt very uneasy. She closed her eyes and saw only 3 people who seemed to be trying to enter her body. She experienced this in her sleep, and whenever she closed her eyes, she saw these entities. She woke me up and we went to check, but they had disappeared. Sometimes negative entities hang around specific places. After that, she couldn't sleep the whole night, but still, something similar happened in our current story. This story is about Ritesh and his family. Ritesh comes from a political background. His uncle is a legislator. I won't share too many details as it's sensitive. His family consists of 4 members: Ritesh himself, his brother, and his parents. They planned a trip to Shimla and booked a guest house for 7 days. Upon arrival, the whole family stayed at the guest house. It was a simple, old-style guest house, somewhat different from the city, with beautiful wooden flooring inside. It was not luxurious, but it was comfortable. The guest house had a layout with rooms on both sides of a corridor, 2 of which were for Ritesh's family and 1 was empty. They checked in and were given their rooms. Ritesh's brother said he would be back later, so he went to lie down on the bed and fell asleep. As soon as he went inside, there was a power cut in the guest house. He thought the lights would come back on soon, so he took a shower and went outside, but it was still dark. He called out to his brother, who had gone outside with their parents and another family staying at the guest house. Ritesh was alone in the guest house. He used his phone's flashlight, changed his clothes, and went outside to see what he could do in the dark. He closed the door behind him and noticed that his flashlight was directed towards the empty room next to the water cooler. He saw a woman standing there, looking at him strangely. He didn't pay much attention and continued to the lawn, realizing he hadn't locked the room. When he turned back, the woman was gone. He thought it might be because of the darkness and locked the room. He then went outside to join his family in the lawn area. Around midnight, the power came back on. They had dinner and went to bed. The next morning, they saw that the family staying in the opposite room had gone out for a walk, and the guest house had only a few guests left. The other family had left their food and gone out. When they returned around 8:30 or 9 p.m., they found that only a few guests were present. Ritesh and his brother were watching cricket match highlights while their parents had gone to their room to sleep. Around 11 o'clock or 11:30 p.m., Ritesh's brother said he was feeling sleepy. Ritesh decided to stay up to watch the match highlights. He looked at the time and saw it was 1:10 a.m. He decided to go to bed and turned off the TV. He noticed that his water bottle was empty, so he went out to refill it from the water cooler. As he approached the water cooler, he noticed that the empty room next to it had a faint humming sound coming from it, which seemed to be a woman's. Ritesh wondered who could be making this sound at this time of night. The voice seemed familiar, like his mother's, but he couldn't understand how his mother could be in that empty room. Ignoring the noise, he thought it might be coming from elsewhere, so he started filling his bottle. As he was doing this, he heard the sound of water dripping. When he looked, he saw that the tap next to the empty room was dripping. He found it odd, turned off the tap, and went back to his room. Suddenly, the other tap also started dripping. He remembered the woman's face from earlier in the night and saw that the room was still making a lot of noise. The dripping water continued, and he was overwhelmed by fear. He ran to his parents, banging on their door. He heard the woman's laughing sound getting closer. When his father opened the door, there was complete silence. The humming and laughing noises had disappeared. Ritesh explained that he had heard the noise of a woman singing near the water cooler and that the taps were dripping. His father checked the taps, which were all closed, and found nothing out of the ordinary. His father reassured him, telling him it was just his imagination. Ritesh tried to get some sleep but was haunted by the woman's face throughout the night. He spent a restless night, and in the morning his parents planned to leave. They went for dinner with friends and returned to the guest house. Ritesh asked the guest house manager about the empty room near the water cooler, wondering if it was occupied by a woman. The manager said no such woman had stayed there. Only Ritesh's family had stayed in the guest house, and the other family had checked out earlier in the day. The manager assured Ritesh there was no one else. Later, Ritesh's family noticed a foul smell coming from the guest house. They discovered that the smell came from behind the wall near the water cooler, where they found the corpse of a woman. It was revealed that 2 years prior, a woman had booked that room and had been heard chanting strange mantras. When she left, the caretaker had found human skeletons in the room and called the police. The police found many bones and traces of black magic, but no suspects. The guest house was eventually shut down. Ritesh and his family never returned to that guest house, and Ritesh remained deeply troubled by the experiences. After the last guest left, the entire staff was cleaned up, but after that, many people saw a woman and strange incidents started happening in the guest house. 3 people saw her and she took their lives. You are lucky, sir, your son saw her, but he is still alive. If anyone sees her, she takes their life within 9 days. The staff was very scared, and they didn't know what to do. They told me that if anyone comes to the guest house, they should be careful. The woman only appears to certain people, and she doesn't appear to everyone, but she appears to those who are destined to die. I was very scared, and I didn't know what to do. I called my grandmother, and she told me to be careful. She said that if anyone sees her, they should not go near her. But I didn't listen to her, and I went near her. She tried to strangle me, and I was very scared. The next morning, I woke up, and I saw her standing in front of me. She was very angry, and she tried to strangle me again. I was very scared, and I didn't know what to do. I called my grandmother again, and she told me to go to Mahendra Balaji, a temple in Rajasthan. She said that if I went there, I would be safe. I went to the temple with my family, and we met a pundit who performed a ritual to protect me. He told me that I was safe now and that the woman wouldn't harm me anymore. But I was still very scared, and I didn't know what to do. The pundit told me to recite the Hanuman Chalisa every day, and he gave me a thread to wear around my wrist. He said that if I wore the thread, I would be safe from the woman. I was very relieved, and I thanked the pundit. After that, I never saw the woman again, and I was very happy. I realized that there are some things in life that we cannot explain, and we should always be careful. I learned a valuable lesson from this incident, and I will always be careful in the future. Story 5. The Unseen Force, a chilling Talash story. This is your story, which Rudra shared with us. He belongs to Lucknow, up. Viru is from Lucknow, up, and works as an accountant in Delhi. He had taken a room on rent in Delhi through a friend's reference. On the day he was supposed to join his new job, he was running late and almost missed his train. He managed to catch the train, but in the process, he met a girl who was also running to catch the train. As they both were trying to get on the train, the girl held Viru's hand, and he, in turn, held hers. The girl's hand got stuck in the train's door, and Viru had to pull her in to save her. After this incident, Viru reached his office and started working. In the evening, he went to his new room, which was already set up with a glass of water on the table. He was surprised to see the glass of water and thought that the landlord must have left it there. As he started living in the room, strange things began to happen. He would find food prepared, and his thirst would be quenched as if someone was taking care of him. He was confused and didn't know what was happening. As time passed, Viru realized that the girl he had saved on the train was somehow connected to these strange events. He started feeling her presence in the room, and eventually, he found out that she was living in the same house. The story is interesting, and I'll let you decide what you think about it. One day, Viru was sleeping, and he felt like someone was sleeping next to him on the same bed. He couldn't see anyone, but he could sense a presence. He didn't sleep the whole night, thinking that someone was with him in the room. The next day, he went to his office and told his friend about the incident. His friend advised him to go back to his hometown, Lucknow, and consult a Baba, a spiritual guru, named Ranga. Viru went to the Baba and told him the whole story. The Baba listened carefully and then said, "The girl whose hand you held on the train had died 3 months ago. She was in a relationship, but her boyfriend left her, and she couldn't bear the shock. She committed suicide, and since then, her spirit has been roaming around, searching for true love." The Baba told Viru that the girl's spirit had attached itself to him because he had held her hand, and now she thought he was her true love. The Baba advised Viru to perform a havan, a ritual, to get rid of the spirit. Viru and his friend went to the Baba's place, and the Baba started the havan. He drew a circle around Viru and told him not to step out of it until the havan was complete. Viru was terrified, but he managed to control himself. Suddenly, the spirit attacked Viru's friends, and they were injured. Viru was shocked, but he didn't step out of the circle. The Baba continued the havan, and eventually, the spirit was calmed down. Viru was relieved, but the Baba warned him that the spirit could still harm him if he wasn't careful. Viru realized that he had to be cautious and not let the spirit manipulate him. The story is a warning to those who might encounter similar situations. If someone holds your hand on a train, think twice before reciprocating. You never know what kind of spirit might be attached to them. Learnings from each story. Story 1. Learning 1. Miscommunication and mistrust can lead to tragic consequences in relationships. 2. Ignoring or dismissing someone's concerns and fears can exacerbate the situation. 3. The power of fear and paranoia can be overwhelming and lead to irrational decisions. 4. The story highlights the importance of communication, trust, and understanding in relationships. 5. The supernatural elements in the story serve as a metaphor for the destructive power of fear and mistrust in relationships. 6. The story also touches on the theme of guilt and the consequences of one's actions, as Maddie's guilt and fear ultimately lead to his downfall. Story 2. Learning 1. The story highlights the importance of understanding and respecting traditional rituals and ceremonies, especially after a death in the family. 2. The blurring of boundaries between the living and the dead can lead to unsettling experiences, as seen in this story. 3. Emotional ties to material objects, such as the grandmother's saris, can contribute to paranormal occurrences. 4. The story demonstrates the importance of seeking help from spiritual authorities, such as priests and tantrics, in resolving paranormal issues. 5. The remedies recommended by the priest and tantric, such as sprinkling Ganga water and reciting mantras, can help reduce the intensity of paranormal disturbances. 6. The story shows that sometimes unusual events have explanations rooted in the natural or spiritual realms, and that seeking help from the right authorities can resolve the issue. 7. The importance of family unity and support is highlighted in the story, as the family comes together to resolve the paranormal disturbances. Story 3. Learning 1. The story highlights the importance of being cautious when accepting food or gifts from others, especially if they may be involved in black magic or other harmful practices. 2. The power of karma is emphasized, as the Tawari family's actions ultimately lead to their downfall. 3. The story demonstrates the importance of seeking help from genuine healers or spiritual authorities when dealing with supernatural or paranormal issues. 4. The family's experiences serve as a warning against the dangers of black magic and the importance of protecting oneself and one's loved ones from its effects. 5. The story highlights the importance of forgiveness and seeking redemption, as seen in Kuldeep's father's dream, where he seeks forgiveness from his son. 6. The story emphasizes the importance of good deeds and helping others, as seen in the actions of the company owner who continues to support Kuldeep's family after his father's death. Story 4. Learning. 1. The story highlights the importance of being cautious when staying in new places, especially those with a history of paranormal activity. 2. The power of black magic and its consequences are emphasized, as seen in the woman's death and the haunting of the guest house. 3. The story demonstrates the importance of seeking help from spiritual authorities, such as pundits, in resolving paranormal issues. 4. The narrator's experience serves as a warning to be careful and cautious in life, as some things cannot be explained or understood. 5. The story emphasizes the importance of respecting and honoring the dead, as seen in the woman's haunting of the guest house. 6. The story highlights the importance of seeking protection and guidance from spiritual authorities, such as pundits, in times of need. Story 5. Learning. 1. The story highlights the importance of being cautious when encountering strangers, especially those who might be attached to spirits. 2. The power of true love and attachment is emphasized, as seen in the girl's spirit searching for true love. 3. The story demonstrates the importance of seeking help from spiritual authorities, such as Babas, in resolving paranormal issues. 4. The story serves as a warning to those who might encounter similar situations, emphasizing the need to be cautious and not let spirits manipulate them. 5. The story highlights the importance of performing rituals, such as havans, to calm down spirits and protect oneself. Finally, before leaving, I request you all to please support my channel, subscribe Horror Stories, and turn on the bell notification so you get the latest video updates first. Stay tuned to the channel until the next video. Thank you.